Good morning, members. Good morning to the members here, and good morning to the members who are zooming in. Good morning to the members of staff as well. You're all welcome to this morning's adjourned meeting. We will get straight on with the business of the meeting. We don't, because it's an adjourned meeting, we don't have to go through any of the other processes. So we'll move straight on with the business of the meeting. And just before we do, I'd like to extend this council's condolences to Damien McSharry, a member of our fire service, on the passing of his wife Mary. I'd also like to extend our sympathies to their children, Keely, Alicia, Jamie, Adam and Amy, and the extended family. May she rest in peace. And we move straight on with the agenda. Number one on the agenda, to note the minutes of the SPC1 Housing and Corporate held on the 13th of April 2021. Number two, to note minutes of meeting of the Ballymore-Tubbercurry Municipal District held on the 19th of April 2020. And I'll second it. 3, to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Sligo County Council held on the 14th of June 2021. Donald, oppose. Seconder? Marie. 4, to confirm the minutes of the adjourned ordinary meeting of Sligo County Council held on the 18th of June 2021. Donald and Councillor Clark, second. 5, to confirm the minutes of the annual general meeting of Sligo County Council held on the 21st of June 2021. Councillor Walsh, Councillor Maguire. 6 is dealt with. 7, to set a date for a special meeting to consider the setting of a local adjustment factor to the local property tax for the period of the 1st of November 2021 to the 31st of October 2022. And we were proposing the 26th. Can I propose 10 o'clock the 26th? (10 o'clock) on the 26th of July. When have we Marie on? Marie?
Yeah, I'm here.
Could I ask you to come in here just on dates first, please?
Yeah, Kyle, look, I don't mind at all. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
I don't mind whatever suits. That's when we had the CPG, that's what we were looking at, that next Monday had municipals and we were considering the following Monday, but it can be any day for whatever suits.
Okay, the 26th is out.
Okay, here, look, are you looking for a proposal for the 26th?
Yes. If I know Councillor Maguire is unavailable on the.
All right, sorry.
On the 26th. Okay, 26th. Could we propose the 23rd? Friday? No. Come. Oh, we Thursday the 22nd?
Okay, good with that.
Okay, Thursday the 20th. Could I have a proposer? And a seconder, Councillor Gilroy.
10 a.m. and 27.
And is it the same time, Kyle? 10 o'clock?
10 a.m. if everyone's happy with that, yeah. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Number 8, to appoint members to the strategic policy committees. Just, I suppose, an outline on this. Councillor Queenan wishes to transfer to SPC2, and I'm willing to facilitate that. Okay, that's proposed by Councillor Gilroy and seconded by Councillor Walsh. Councillor Gibbons.
On the second part of it, the new person to facilitate on SPC 1, I think it's under that, isn't it?
The second.
Part.
Sorry?
On that, for new person on SPC 1. Sorry, we have to get in.
Yes. Would be switch. Okay, that's agreed. Thank you. 9, to approve pursuant to section 123 of the Local Government Act 2001 the disposal of the freehold interest in property at number 8 Cairns Drive, Sligo to Miss Johanna Dooley. Opposed by Councillor Bree, seconded by Councillor Maguire. 10, to approve in accordance with section 183 of the Local Government
Can I propose that?
2001 the disposal of 2 dwelling houses and associated lands at Clahogue, Upper Castle Baldwin, County Sligo to Mr. Kyle Gettins, proposed by Councillor O'Boyle. Seconded.
Seconded, Jordan Malani.
Seconded by Councillor Milani. 11, to consider the county Sligo place names policy. And I just have a line on this proposed by Councillor Gilroy and seconded by Councillor Healy. It's an amendment to it. The Sligo County Council amend item 2.0 committee composition as follows. Remove the lines 3 elected members of municipal district of Ballymore Tubbercurry and 3 elected members of municipal district of Sligo. Include the lines 2 elected members of municipal district of Ballymore Tubbercurry, 2 elected members of the municipal district of Sligo Strandhill and 2 elected members of the municipal district of Sligo Drumcliff. It's my belief, Councillor Gilroy, do you want to come in?
Yeah, hello. Just that it was, I think it was just an oversight that it was drawn up originally when there was only 2 municipal districts and now there's 3. I think the current makeup of it is actually 2 from each of the 3 areas. I stand to be corrected on that, but I think it is. So it's just for fairness going forward that each of the 3 areas would have 2 representatives. Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
It'll also make no change to the group members that are sitting there already, because we have 2 representatives, Fox and Councillor Cassidy is on already.
It's just to change the line.
Just
Is that agreed?
change the line, yeah.
Agreed. Thanks, Councillor Bree. And seconder, Councillor Walsh. And agreed. Number 12, to consider Sligo County Council participation in the council framework of the All Ireland Pollinator Plan. Proposed Councillor Casserly, seconded Councillor Maguire. Third.
At the SPC 4 meeting before last, it was proposed that we would adopt and join the All Ireland Pollinator Plan. I'm just wondering, are we doubling up here? I think this came before the last meeting.
I'm unsure. Dorothy?
Emer.
Oh, Emer.
Sorry, yes, sorry, Cahirla. I can get that clarified, Councillor, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I remember at the last meeting. I don't think so, but certainly we'll check it out for you.
It definitely came before the SPC 4, the meeting before last. It was agreed and it was suggested we put forward to the monthly meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. 13, to note the intention to commence the formal process of preparing a new Sligo County Development Plan on 30th of July 2021 with the publication of an issues paper. The report was circulated. Yes, Councillor Clark.
In view of motion 46, Councillor Gilroy's motion, could we have clarity on the position of the planning department in relation to the review and to that motion 46?
Do we wish to take, Councillor Gilroy, do you wish to take your motion now? If we're going to discuss it, or will we wait and discuss it when the motion comes up?
I think this is a kind of formality, whereas maybe it might be good to take it with Councillor Clark's motion about staffing in the planning department. Maybe that might be more opportune.
Take both of your motions together.
Yeah, that's the one oh no, sorry.
Can we discuss them
Cathaoirleach, we have an obligation to commence the formal process. The executive has come to us with recommendations, and the other motions I see as separate. I believe we should proceed with this, with commencing the formal process, and I'd formally propose we do so.
It's to note it.
Except what Councillor Bree is saying as well. But what I thought that the planning department Dorothy might address is what effect will Councillor's 46 motion on with the starting of the review? Will it set it aside? Will it delay it? Or will it run in conjunction with it?
Yeah.
Ms. Dorothy, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, look, this is just a notification to members that we are about to embark on the review of the county development plan. And the county development plan will be, we have to have a new county development plan in place by 2023. There is a 2-year lead-in process to that. So we have to commence, and Councillor Bree is right, we have to commence we have to kickstart the commencement of that process this summer, and this is just a notification to members that we will be doing so by the end of the month. So it's just for members' information. So now, just maybe in relation to item 46, Councillor Gilroy's and Councillor Clark's motion in relation to.
Do you want to? Sorry, Dorothy. Do you want to take your motions now?
Well,
we can't discuss them now if we're not taking them. I agree.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, particularly during the 2-year process, I think that this might be what Councillor Clark, during the 2-year process of consultation and preparation of the county development plan, there will be time and ample time given over to what is the subject of the motion and the strategic land reserve, new land rezonings and all of that. That's kind of what the 2-year process is all about, the consultation process. We have to identify what land is required for housing, commercial, all types of purposes for the next 6 years. So during that 2-year preparatory process, that's when consideration will be given to all of these zonings, whether we take land out of the strategic land reserve or whether we need land zoned elsewhere or whatever else. That is what the 2-year process is all about, and it's to give time for consideration of that. I think that might be what Councillor Clark might have been referring to. I'm not sure. No, we can deal with them later on if that's okay.
Councillor Gilroy.
Yes, thanks for that very much. Thanks very much, Dorothy. I suppose the question I'd be concerned about is there any reason why, after we note this or that this process begins, why we cannot take a variation, which would be number 21 and 46, that we cannot take a variation once the process has begun? Is that any embargo to us taking it? I believe it's not. And secondly, when does the Sligo and Environs plan, which I thought was to come first, I thought it was the next thing to come after we adopted the RSES, or is that now pushed back until after the county development plan again? Thank you.
Yeah, no, as far as I know, there is no embargo. Our existing plan, our current plan, stays in place and remains in place until the council adopts a new plan, and that won't be until 2023. So therefore, if a variation was required between now and then, that is a matter for the members. However, I suppose a lot of the variation is a statutory process, so it does take quite a while. So it's not something that can be done at any one meeting. There would be a consultation phase to it. So the fact that we have to embark on the commencement of our new county development plan, it certainly would give rise to confusion if we were dealing with the variation of our current plan. And the same issues, the same consultations and all of that would have to take place. So it certainly would, in my view, cause a certain amount of confusion. But there isn't, as far as we know, the actual current plan stays in existence until a new one is adopted. So therefore, a variation or, any changes to it would be at the request of the members and would have to be, there is a statutory process that would have to be involved. In relation to the Sligo and Environs plan, now we would have notified members probably a couple of months back that from discussions we would have had with the Office of the Planning Regulator, and because we also now have adopted, as we have updated our county development plan, our current county development plan, for it to be in line with the regional spatial and economic strategy. It was the advice we would have got from the Office of the Planning Regulator that we should, insofar as we possibly can, move to commence a new county development, with the result that Sligo and Environs plan has been pushed back. And we would have informed members of that, I'd say maybe a month or two ago, there or thereabouts. It would have been sent out in a memo to all councillors. We can get that, be sent out again, just for members to be aware of it. I think that was it, Cathaoirleach.
Well, Chairman.
The members' room, yep.
Last question.
Yes, Councillor Queenan. Yes, Councillor Queenan.
I can't see you, Councillor Taylor, but I can hear you. Regarding the commencement of the county development plan Ms. Clark stated the end of the month. I thought we were to have a special meeting to discuss this whole before we commenced. Now, August, we don't have any council meetings. Are we saying, is Ms. Clark telling us that she's going to commence the county development plan in July? We have no meeting until the second week of September, and elected members will have no say on it or no input until then, and it's gone out to public consultation. Is that what you say?
Cathaoirleach, is it? Cathaoirleach, is
yes,
it? Yes,
Ms. Clark.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, Councillor Queenan, we have always said that if the members requested a meeting to discuss planning, whether at a council meeting or whether a committee meeting, we are willing to do that. And I know I've had discussions with Councillor Taylor in that regard, with Cathaoirleach in that regard. So certainly if a meeting with members is required in advance of the commencement date, that is absolutely no problem. We can arrange that. But it's certainly, if we get that request, we will certainly comply with that. We have
the leader say, short work with this because time is moving on. I propose, before we commence our new county development plan, that we have a full council meeting, and at that meeting will be the county manager, director of services, and the senior planners, all at that table, that we can ask questions and get clarity before we commence this new, long-awaited, overdue, delayed plan. And to talk about 2 years down the road before we can de-zone or rezone land is outrageous on the present housing crisis we have in this council and this county. If de-zoning or amendments take place in the next year or so, it'll have to take place. Elected members are there to represent the people on the ground, and there's a serious housing crisis right around this county, as we have discussed several times, and we can't wait for 2 or 3 years before we change our plan. And I'm asking you, Cathaoirleach, to call a council meeting, a special council meeting, before we go on, before the end of the month, before we commence our new plans, and get clarity on all these issues. Thank you.
Councillor Queenan, I disagree. I agree. Having said that, Ms. Clark and Mr. Moylan have said that they will facilitate a meeting when we ask for it.
But fix it now. Fix it now, Cathaoirleach.
To be very fair to them, and we can fix it now, if we wish to pick a date to fix it now. So I'm opening it to the floor for a date.
What date does Ms. Clark envisages commencing this plan? What date?
We will be starting the 2-year lead-in process the end of July, the 30th of July. And we have to do that. That's not something that we...
Well, it has to happen before then.
Yeah.
We can have it in the afternoon next Monday, so next Monday afternoon. At 3 o'clock. What do you mean finish?
We finished at 1 o'clock.
Okay, could anybody that's not speaking, could you turn off could you mute yourselves, please? Have I a proposal for next Monday at 3 o'clock?
Yes.
Next Monday being the 19th.
Yes.
Have I a seconder? Okay.
I second.
And Ms. Clark, is that agreed?
Yes, Cahirlock, absolutely. If 3 o'clock on the 19th, yeah, I'll inform our senior planner and senior staff. That's okay.
That's agreed. And can we note number 13? Note it.
Yeah.
14 to approve pursuant to section 183 of the Local Government Act 2001 the disposal of property 3 Anne's Terrace, Sligo to Anne-Marie McGowan. Proposed Councillor Bree.
I second.
Seconded
Proposal.
Councillor O'Grady.
Yeah.
15 to approve pursuant to section 183
I propose.
disposal of property at 40 St Anne's Terrace, Sligo to Nicholas Fairland and Kathleen Dacey.
I propose.
Councillor O'Grady, seconded.
I'll second it.
Councillor Gibbons. 16 to approve pursuant to section 183 of the Local Government Act 2001 dispose of property at 27 Dorley Park, Sligo to Peter Connolly. Proposed by Councillor O'Boyle.
Seconded.
Seconded Councillor Bree. 17 to approve pursuant to section 183 of the Local Government Act the disposal of property at Drimban, Curry, County Sligo to Una Walsh. Proposed.
Proposed.
Councillor Gibbons, was it? Councillor Gibbons, seconded. Councillor Connolly. 18 to
I
note.
propose the name of Councillor Marie Casserly to sit on this board, 18 Cahirlock. Both myself and Marie, Councillor Casserly, done immense work in relation to addressing the funding situation so that this would go on without sharing funds from the departments to the council. And she has done immense work on it previous to this, and she would bring it up to the board. So I propose the name of Marie Casserly to sit on this.
First of all, have we a seconder for Councillor Casserly? Seconder? Okay, so we have Councillor Gibbons. Sorry, Councillor.
The name, Councillor Thomas Healy. Thomas is a hard worker. Thomas is a hard worker. He stands up for his community. His work ethic is absolutely outstanding, and I feel myself that he's a massive asset to this committee. Thank you very much.
Seconded by Councillor Bree. Councillor Bree, do you want to come in now?
I just want to say I welcome this report. It's been some time since Sligo councillors met in Dromahare with members of Leitrim County Council to discuss the development of the proposed Sligo, Leitrim and Northern Counties Railway Greenway. And at the time it was generally recognised that the development of the Greenway along the old rail route connecting Colooney with Ballantor, Dromahare, Glenfarne, Blackbryan and Enniskillen would have a significant economic benefit for the entire region. Cost-benefit analysis at the time indicated that the completed Greenway would boost spending in the region by almost €7 million in the first year. And given the fact that it's a cross-border Greenway with 18 kilometres of the route located in Fermanagh, it obviously adds to the significance and importance of the project. We were told then that the cost of converting the disused railway route into a multi-use trail for cyclists and walkers could be in excess of €10 million. The grant of €500,000 allocated last year to bring the project through statutory process was certainly welcome. And as you will be aware, Cahirlock, 8 months ago, the Taoiseach confirmed to the Dáil that €500 million was earmarked for Shared Ireland projects, and he referred to 3 specific projects: the Narrow Water Bridge and Ulster Canal and the Sligo Enniskillen Greenway. So in this context, and considering that the funding is available to cover the cost of the project, I feel that it is important that we work with the other councils north and south of the border to advance the project to ensure that the grant aid can be applied for at the soonest possible time so as to develop this major piece of infrastructure for the region. There's just one issue I would have a concern about, and I'm proposing a motion in that context. I propose that this council, that we recommend that the membership of the community liaison group be increased to allow each local authority to nominate 3 elected representatives, and that the motion be circulated to the local authorities in Leitrim, Cavan and Fermanagh. As it is, Cahirlock, the recommendation is that there would be 2 elected representatives from each county. I do feel strongly that we should have at least 3 from each local authority. So I'm proposing that motion. I hope I have a seconder for that.
Seconded by Councillor Gilroy. Councillor Connolly.
Yes, Cahirlock.
I would like to propose the name of Councillor Thomas Welch to that board. Thomas, very experienced in this and has done an awful lot of work in it. And I think he would be a big addition on this board. Thank you, Cahill.
Seconder.
I'd like to second Thomas Walsh. I attended the meeting that Councillor Biggins referred to in Dromahare many years ago now, and also as chair of ICBAN, the cross-border body. We were instrumental in pushing forward this project from the outset. But I would be happy for Thomas to represent all our interests on this project. I think he's committed to it and would bring a lot to the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have three proposals: Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Healy, and Councillor Walsh. The report tells us that we're supposed to have two, and Councillor Bree and seconded has a motion here and seconded by Councillor Gilroy that we recommend that the membership of the community liaison group be increased to allow each local authority to nominate 3 elected representatives, and that this motion be circulated to the local authorities in Leitrim, Cavan, and Fermanagh. Can we agree? Can we agree that, Mr. Culfeather?
Here, maybe just for the information of the members, I sat on the first meeting of the steering group. I don't think, in fairness, there's any. I don't think there'll be a problem with a third nomination. And if that's the view of the meeting, I certainly go back to my colleagues and say that Sligo would be interested in having 3 members on that group.
Is that agreed? Are we all happy with that? Okay, well done.
Great.
We can move on to 19, to note the monthly management report for May 2021. Noted, well done. Deferred motions, Councillor Queenan, number 20.
I better take it now, it's long enough on the agenda. But my motion speaks for itself. I want on the new climate change bill to ensure that our national herd is retained. A reduction in the national herd will be detrimental for rural Ireland and also for all the jobs that's created in the agri-business. I also welcome the new CAP deal, and the Minister has done a good job. And what's very exciting about it is that he has flexibility in how he shares out the money and the regulations over the next 7 years. So I wish him well. I have confidence in the Minister, and I will just say that I hope he looks after the small farmers, and that the money should be given to the small farmers right around the country. And the big beef farms shouldn't be given any of the CAP money. It's immoral that the likes of Larry Goodman and guys like him are taking money out of the CAP deed, and that the money is given to the smaller people, the people who looked after the rural areas for generations. And I also want to say that coming from rural Ireland, we are as conscious as anybody about our environment, and we will play our part to ensure that our environment is looked after, and the carbon tax, that the people in Dublin North or Dublin 4, Mr. Green, the ministers in the Green Party, we've looked after our environment for years, for decades. The one issue I'm concerned about, this thing about flooding a quarter of our country, that is going to have detrimental effect to other flooding issues down the road. And I would hope it will be challenged. And I would say this, that maybe we're better to focus, the TDs would focus now on environmental issues and rural issues and housing issues, and leave the Taoiseach alone for another year or so and see how we get on. But this country is a very challenging with COVID, environment and housing, and get on with the job. And back the ministers for the next year or so and see what it might be more in line. But I hope that Fianna Fáil people will ensure that rural Ireland is looked after, and that and the Fine Gael TDs also, who are elected here, ensure that our climate change does not have a negative effect on rural Ireland. Thank you.
Councillor Connolly.
Yes, Cahill, look, I would like to wholeheartedly support Councillor Queenan's motion. As a small farmer myself, small farmers in the rural Ireland are made feel like this. They are the cause of the work. So I wholeheartedly support that motion. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, you're not a small farmer, but
Very small farmer, Ciara. First of all, colleagues will remember in the last term we had Chairman of the IFA, Cowley from Rathlee, came in and gave us a presentation on the importance of the national herd to the economy and the Irish economy, and especially the economy of the Western Seaboard. I just briefly outline a few points he made. The cow sustains the cultural heritage and rural way of life of the whole region. The cow sustains thousands of jobs in the meat factory to the tune of billions. The cow sustains jobs in the livestock market to the tune of billions. The cow and all of the livestock exports to the tune of billions to the economy. The cow and its progeny sustains the grain industry to the tune of billions. The cow sustains the farm machinery industry to the tune of billions. The cow provides store cattle to the eastern feedlots. The cow sustains the Pedigree Breeders Association and all the breeding, the pedigree stock. The cow sustains thousands of jobs in the Department of Agriculture. The cow provides the basis of rural tourism. The cow farmer is at the coal face of climate change and will play their part. And given a proper cow suckler scheme, a green scheme, a new welfare scheme for all farmers which will support is what's needed. And the cows should be maintained at the present through a probable limit herd, as Councillor Queenan said. We'll say that the cow should be paid to 50 livestock units, a proper scheme to sustain the Irish beef industry. And Councillor Queen is absolutely right to have this on the agenda. Thank you, Ciara.
I'd also like to support the motion. Is that Councillor Maguire?
Yes, similarly, I'd like to support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's agreed by all. That's agreed. We move on. 21, Councillor Queenan again. And
Deferred.
Excuse me.
Deferred.
Deferred. Councillor Clark, are you happy with?
Queen is the boss.
22, Councillor Gilroy. Deferred. 23, Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Cathaoirleach. Thank you. I welcome the report. This has been on the agenda, I think, the last 3 meetings. Can I ask the Director, has the contract been put in place for the SLNCR project? Has it been awarded? I know that the tender process had finished in June and it was to be awarded. Is there an update on that position?
Councillor Cassidy, do you want to come in first? Dorothy, do you want to come in there?
Yes, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, the tenders have been received, and at this stage I know that they are being evaluated. So the contract hasn't been awarded yet, but it should be, we would hope so, sooner rather than later, within the next month or so. As far as I know, the tenders are about to be evaluated. I don't think, I was away last week, so unless that they were evaluated then, but the contract will be awarded sooner rather than later. So the tenders are in, so, and I believe that there may have been 5 tenders received. So we'll update members as soon as we know further. Leitrim are leading out on this, so they are in conjunction with ourselves, Cavan and Fermanagh, they are leading out on the evaluation process as well.
Thank you, Dorothy. Does the proposer or seconder want to come in again?
Yeah, just to say, I welcome the reply and I welcome the earlier report in relation to the forming of the steering group, tactical working group and community liaison group. And I welcome the project progressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Healy.
Thank you. I just want to I seconded that motion. So
you did, yeah.
That's very welcome news as well. The tenders received and evaluated. It's brilliant news, and the contract to be awarded. And just in relation to, I suppose, to the Sligo Greenway, it's great that progress. I know with COVID that there has been delays, the same as everything else, but it's great that it's progressing. And I suppose just to emphasise the amount of jobs and tourism development and prosperity and job creation that will come from this Sligo Greenway. You just see last week the part of the Limerick to Kerry Greenway has been opened 40 kilometres, and they're working on the rest of it now. So, and you see the success of the Waterford Greenway and the hundreds of jobs that have been created. And I was speaking to somebody just over the weekend who's saying that Dungarvan has actually exploded. And last year when I cycled in the Waterford Greenway, I would advise anybody during the summer to take a trip down. It's well worth it. The little villages of Kilmac Thomas and other villages along the way that were decimated for years and had nobody stopping, nobody passing through. Now they are thriving. It's great to see tours, bike stands, shops, coffee shops. And when we were hiring the bikes in Waterford, we started early in the morning and we had to go to the third bike shop for bike hire because the first two that we went to close to the Greenway, and I would say they had possibly 150 bikes each, and they were gone. They were booked, and we were there early in the morning. So we had to go to the third bike shops, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I think, with the Sligo Greenway and the SLNCR, it's all the piece of the jigsaw fitting together eventually. And I don't think it'll take that long until that jigsaw is complete. So I'd just like to say, first of all, thanks to the Department of Transport for putting their faith in local authorities and giving them the money and giving us the money to progress, because at the time, and I said it before here, we didn't have any money. There were other more important projects that needed the finance. So to get that extra money was a real shot in the arm, not only for Sligo, but for all local authorities who are a lot smaller and don't have the same amount of cash flow that bigger local authorities do have. So it really has got kick-started these greenways, and they're jewels in the crown in every single county, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them all progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cass. Councillor Healy.
First of all, I welcome the report, and it's an important report, and it's an important project as well, because as Councillor Maguire says, she was on INCBAM. We're the group of us that are on INCBAM, and the framework document that was included in that, and we have met with the CEO of Sligo County Council to see how we can push it on as INCBAM members. But it is an important project because it opens up Leitrim, Sligo, Fermanagh and cross-border, which is most important. It's just that I've just one query, and I know that this said back in the report that they had no talk yet with local landowners. I was just wondering what is the response from the local landowners, because it's not like we'll say the Collooney to Claremorris line that is owned by one person or one group. There's different individual farmers there and that. I'm just wondering, I know that you stated that since COVID came in that you had no talk, but have you wrote out to the land members, and what response you got back? And also, how many farmers are we dealing with? Is it a large number or a small number? Thank you.
Councillor Mulvey, I'll let you in first.
Thanks, Cahir. And I'll be brief, just in concurring with what Councillor Casserly has said, and it's great to see progress on these. And I know, along with yourself, we attended some Greenway meetings prior to COVID, and the huge interest that's out there for Greenways in south of the county. And I know while there's progress on the others, on the SLNCR, I know, speaking to people that have, been on these greenways, this is the way forward. Tourism is our biggest outlet. We see the huge interest, and I see it firsthand on the National Mountain Biking Centre here in Killarney. There never was more need for rural recreation, for mental health and well-being of people, and I certainly am delighted to see, and I want to thank Ms Clark and all the staff and her department for the work that they're doing on this, because this certainly is the way forward. And I know regarding the Greenway project, Sligo to Balahi, South Sligo, certainly there's a huge amount of people that are waiting to see this project take off. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mulvey. Dorothy, do you want?
Yes.
And Councillor Healy's question.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not true to say that there hasn't been discussion with farmers. There was now, it may not have been recent discussions, but certainly a couple of years back, Leitrim, particularly in the part of it that is in Leitrim and Sligo, because Sligo and Leitrim stands to benefit more than, we'll say, the likes of Cavan, where there's only a smaller proportion of the line. So in relation to Sligo and Leitrim have done quite a good bit of work in relation to negotiations with farmers and discussing or ensuring that farmers are aware that this is happening. Now, likewise in Sligo, both Ray and Michael here in our office here certainly would have had dealings with the farmers in Sligo that will be affected. And I think in total there could be up to 90 farmers, so that it's quite an extensive number of stakeholders to have to engage with. Now, in the context of the project and moving it on, there will be a liaison, local authority liaison person to deal with the landowner issue, and that's why I suppose the committees and the committee where the local authority members will be on is an important committee, because obviously it's all about championing this and advocating for it and liaising with local landowners as best we can. And that is also going to be led out by Leitrim County Council, but working alongside ourselves in Sligo and our counterparts in Cavan and Fermanagh as well. So farmers would have been made aware of this a couple of years back when this project was mooted a good few years ago, and I suppose it was around the time we had those meetings in Dromahair with the other local authorities. And I just have to say as well that Collooney will be the focal point for both greenways. It will be the meeting point, so it is going to have a significant position, I suppose, particularly for both greenways. And I suppose, while there will be challenges in delivering on these, we all know, and Councillor Casserly has outlined, I suppose, the benefits that will accrue to the villages along each of the routes. And we certainly will look forward to working with Leitrim to delivering the SLNCR, and I suppose to working with Irgno there and to delivering on the Sligo Greenway. A lot of work is still to be done, but at least it's moving, and but Collooney certainly will benefit quite a bit. And I know in the past we have been maybe accused that we're not putting Collooney forward for other schemes and initiatives that come forward, but certainly we do see Collooney as having being a huge focal point for both of the greenways, and hopefully over the next few years we will be able to deliver on both of them. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Just Councillor Walsh, I'm going to let you in just before I do. I welcome the report and I welcome the progress, and it is a very important infrastructure for this region. Councillor Walsh will give you the final say. You submitted the motion.
Yeah, and I'll just be brief. And just on that point, there was a stakeholder, the director is right, there was a stakeholder forum in Castledargan with the landowners, and there was a public meeting in Ballantor with the engineers, and all the landowners have been met with at least 3 times along the line in the past number of years. Both former Councillor Cleary did, I did, and there is engagement ongoing with a number of those landowners at the minute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to 24, Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Cahirlock. The act of coercive control, making it a criminal offence, was brought into this country on the 1st of January 2019, and I'd like to commend the government for their foresight in having brought this forward. As of January 2021, there are 50 cases being investigated by the Gardaí. A recent 10-year sentence shows the seriousness with which the courts takes these cases. Unfortunately, research shows, however, that up to 40% of people still don't understand what coercive control is. It is something that affects all sections of society, and that is displayed, unfortunately, only last month when a Garda has been brought to court in relation to this offence. I'd like to acknowledge that my colleagues Declan Bree and Gino Boyle brought a motion, I think a number of months ago, in relation to domestic violence, and the two are related. Domestic violence goes beyond physical violence. It's the destruction of property, the isolation from friends and family, and from other areas of support. It is a withdrawal or stopping somebody from accessing money, food, transportation, or even a telephone. And unfortunately, it often goes unreported and is misunderstood. It's reported that in this country, 213,000 women and 88,000 men at some point of their lives will endure domestic violence. It can take the form of physical violence, emotional force or threat, or physical force, and includes sexual violence in close adult relationships. Domestic violence profoundly affects the physical, emotional, social, financial well-being of the individuals and their families. It has been a horrific statistic that in the past year, during the pandemic, there has been 25% increase in year on in the calls for assistance from Gardaí in relation to domestic violence. And during the pandemic, this has increased even more. Women's Aid have reported a 39% increase in calls and a 74% increase on traffic on their website. It remains, even at this point, one of the most unreported and undocumented and unprosecuted crimes on the books, and it can't remain a hidden issue, which is pawned off with piecemeal and inadequate resources, as has been the situation heretofore. The Gardaí have said they have prioritised domestic violence, and that is crucially important, and it remains that it is a priority. However, the recent reporting of the avoiding of 999 calls in relation to domestic violence cannot be allowed to continue. It requires additional free legal aid advice for those who encounter it. I welcome the fact that Airbnb have begun a partnership to provide free accommodation for families who are in situations requiring that. However, the fact that social distancing has provided a decrease in the capacity of domestic violence accommodation by 25% means that we are still well short of what is required in this country. And it is horrific to believe that 2,159 requests for refuge in the past year have gone unmet due to the lack of resources. Thank you, Caroline.
Chair, can I come in?
Councillor Gibbons, you seconded.
Eric, as the seconder of the motion, and I just like to make it clear to the record, I also put a similar motion to this. There was I put a motion to this to the council a number of months ago, and in relation to it, it wasn't accepted by all the council. There was one or two who had an issue with it, and it was in relation to domestic violence, and it was in relation to the lack of funding that was being put into it, even though the figures clearly showed the increase that there was in domestic violence because of the COVID-19, and I just want to put that on record. But I would have to agree with everything that my colleague says here. I would have to support the motion 100%. Domestic violence, and I was actually seeing an article in one of the papers in relation to Deputy Cathaoirleach of the Dáil was Miss Connolly, where she had 2.2 billion in funding, is exactly what it's costing the state on domestic violence. I think it's a disgrace to think that 999 calls went in and were unanswered. I do think that an apology from An Garda Síochána is not enough. I think myself that there was a call there for help, and the people that's supposed to be protecting the most vulnerable in society step back, turn their heads the other way, bury their heads in the sand, and look the other way. I do know there has been an apology. I don't think it is enough. I think there's an inquiry. I think there's a personal apology made to every one of those victims of domestic violence that made that call. And I proudly here today support this motion. I think that enough is not being done in relation to domestic violence financially by the government, or in a state where you have the protectors of the people are turning a blind eye to what's happening. I think it isn't good enough. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Bree and then Councillor Boyle.
Look, I support the motion. We obviously have to acknowledge the positive steps that have been taken to date. However, I think it's important to point out that a year ago, this council called on the government and the Department of Health, the Department of Justice and Equality and the Department of Children and Youth Affairs to implement recommendation 36 of the report of the reform of the family law system from October 2019. And the report recommended that consideration be given as to whether laws should be amended to take into account situations where one parent is wrongfully influencing their child or children against the other parent, thereby creating unfair and unwarranted alienation that can be destructive and life-lasting. The report also pointed out that in other jurisdictions such as Canada, judges presiding over family law cases have yearly training on estrangement, parental alienation and parental coaching. However, to date, no significant progress has been made with regard to the recommendations, and the latest information is that the Department of Justice says it will conduct research into the issue in Q3 of this year. Unfortunately for many parents, this research comes too late as they already feel like strangers to their own children. And I've no doubt but that all of us have come across cases where a child has been poisoned against their father or mother. The sense of grief and loss for the targeted parent can be overwhelming. And I believe it's extremely important that the recommendation of the report of the family law system be acted upon sooner rather than later. Thank you, Cathaoirleach.
Thanks, Councillor B. Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Councillor Chair, is to support the motion, but also I think a number of years ago I had a motion in about trying to get some accommodation for victims of domestic violence with this council. There isn't enough refuge for people to go. DVAS themselves don't have too much left. The funding they received last year, while there was an increase, still isn't adequate. One of the reasons I constantly put motions in about funding for horse racing and greyhound racing is because of the funding they get, and that funding isn't needed compared to the funds that should be needed for domestic violence, coercive control, or refuge for people or victims of domestic violence. It's absolutely disgraceful that every time something like this comes up, the government say we're going to look into it, we're going to look into it. It's being kicked down the road, which is a constant issue here in Ireland. Now, I know people who are victims of domestic violence, rape, assault, physical and emotional abuse, that when they go looking for help, whether it be a counsellor or whatever, the waiting lists are absolutely horrendous, 2 to 3 years sometimes. And I don't understand how people who can get along with their lives after doing something like that get to walk away scot-free. So I'll definitely support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Maguire,
thank you.
The final say.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleagues for their support and would absolutely agree with the suggestions put forward by Councillor Bree in relation to training of the judiciary and also reform of the family law system. It is well outdated and absolutely needs to be addressed and brought into the 21st century. And also the comment made by Councillor Boyle in relation to the uncertainty for families who are left, actually those who are fortunate enough to get refuge, and they are a minority, unfortunately, that they don't have any certainty in relation to how long they'll be in that position or where they might find accommodation next. And it really is an appalling situation for families to be left in. And as you've said, Councillor Boyle, it gives them no opportunity to move on and build and know where their future is going to be. Thank you.
I would also like to support the motion. Okay, 25, Councillor Casserly.
I second that motion.
Thank you. The motion was just to seek an update from the OPW and CAO on how the refurbishment of Sligo Garda Station complies with Part M of the Building Regs Access and Use, whether a disabled access certificate has or will be issued on the completion of the works. The response that we received back, and we also received back this and on the JPC, is completely inadequate. And it's completely contradictory, because what they're saying is regarding the works already completed in the 1940s building in 2019 and the ongoing works to the custody suite, it should be noted that universal access has been provided to publicly accessible areas of the station in accordance with Part M. The OPW has further advised that when working within the confines of an existing building, the building regulation only requires compliance to an extent that is practically possible. OPW and all of its projects strive to comply with the building regulations insofar as constraints of existing buildings allow. So just after on doing a little bit of research and reading into the OPW's actual, and this is where the contradiction takes place, their own equality, diversity and inclusion strategy and action plan, they state to proactively create a culture of awareness and respect for equality, diversity and inclusion matters which permeates the workplace. The OPW are responsible for the provision and maintenance of Garda accommodation and importantly ensuring public buildings are, as far as practicable, accessible to persons with disabilities. This facility is not evident at Sligo Garda Station, with non-existent parking facilities for persons with disabilities. They don't even have a disabled parking space. Currently, the existing 3-storey building does not have a lift, and therefore accessibility is only possible to the public office in the 1940s building. Section 42 of the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission Act 2014 introduced a statutory provision referred to as a public sector equality and human rights duty. The duty requires public bodies to eliminate discrimination, provide equality of opportunity and treatment for employees and persons to whom it provides services, and protect the human rights of employees and users. So the OPW, they also state that they provide a responsive, equal and accessible policing service to all. So the OPW has provided universal access to publicly accessible areas of the station, which is just inside the front door. But what about providing an accessible policing service to its own members? Currently, parts of the building are not accessible, and most parts of the building are not accessible by those with a disability. A brief inspection of the current Garda station in Sligo in terms of long-term suitability was carried out by an official from the Department of Justice on the 18th of December 2019. At that time, that official indicated that the station was wholly unsuitable to meet present and future requirements. In Sligo, the deficiency of a disability service such as lift and restroom facilities within the building eradicates the employment of personnel with disabilities. And I asked the following questions at the recent JPC meeting. Following refurbishments in the future, so this is after the refurbishments that are supposed to be carried out, would someone with a disability or a wheelchair user be able to work in or access Sligo Garda station? And the answer is no. And that's after the refurbishments. Does the lack of a DAC, which is a disability access cert, go against the inclusion strategy? The answer is yes. Can a wheelchair user, will a wheelchair user be able to work in the station or access the station? The answer was no. And that's after. So 90% of the building is completely and wholly inaccessible to people with disabilities, and that will continue in the future. And just finally, because this is important, an organisation for people with disabilities said action is needed over hiring graduates with disabilities. Research shows that while over 2/3, 76% of companies have a diversity and inclusion strategy, less than 40% have targeted recruitment aimed at people with disabilities. So their actions don't meet intentions. This is clearly seen in the Garda station in Sligo, where people with a physical disability cannot be employed as the building does not cater for this. The research conducted for AHEAD showed that 83% of employers believe hiring people with disabilities is of benefit to companies, and Ireland is one of the lowest levels of employment for people with disabilities. So I'm going to just keep this on the record and on the agenda until we get a more suitable answer, and we'll keep asking. Thank you.
The members' room, Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. And in seconding the motion, I'd like to fully support all the various issues that Councillor Casserly has outlined. As chair of the JPC, this was brought up, and Councillor Casserly has very covered all the different issues. But this 1940 building, I've been through it when Sligo was seeking the purple flag. Part of the adjudication was what state was our Garda station in. And it's unbelievable that a site was bought by a government and that then the plan for Sligo was changed, and that the refurbishment of this 1940s totally inadequate building was commenced. So certainly, and it's as Councillor Casserly has said, it's only the front part of the building is suitable for anybody with any form of disability, and nowhere to park outside if they want to get into the station, and no parking for any of the staff, only very limited. So I wholeheartedly support this motion, and I think it's important that it's kept on until we get an adequate response, that it's kept on the agenda here and on the agenda in the policing committee. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons.
I'm dumbfounded. Think that this is the situation that we're sitting in 2021. When I think the Sligo Borough Council and second, the Sligo County Council adopted the Barcelona agreement disabilities in 1999-2000, the first. But my understanding was, even back then, when Part M, now I know Part M of the building regulations came into place, that any building that was being refurbished, let it be used for the public or let it be belongs to the public, that building had to come up to the criteria of Part M in the building regulations. This has clearly not happened with this and the government building. But the other question that I would ask, haven't we got an enforcement officer that's supposed to oversee this from this council? That was my understanding, and I know that. I remember we ran into a number of issues within Sligo town. There was a bar in Sligo that specifically put a step in, people couldn't access it with wheelchairs, and their excuse was the idea of the step that they didn't want mothers coming in with their prams, and that was nearly their way around it. There was a couple of bars like that. There was one hotel that was refurbished about 20 years ago, and I do know it nearly went to the courts to get them to conform to Part M in the building regulations. And I cannot understand for a building that I do know that a lot of refurbishment is done in, and here we are in this day and age still, and we're able to abuse this and get away with it. There's not a way of saying it. I mean, to say they had engineers overseeing that, and them engineers should be putting those things in place. Now, I had brought up, because it was brought to me there a number of months ago, and I brought up in this council about the lack of disabled parking spaces outside of the guards barrack. And it was a friend of mine that was a guard that actually brought it to my attention at the time. But the surprise part about it was there was a bigger issue with inside the barracks, where people is being stopped from employment or applying for employment because they have a disability. Like, that's discrimination against people with disabilities. And I think myself that is something that everybody shares a responsibility on. But the question that I would like to ask in relation to it, the enforcement officer from Sligo County Council, is it not their responsibility to oversee this type of works? Thank you very much, Go ahead.
Councillor Healy.
Yeah, first of all, I want to welcome the motion. This is a couple of times now we have motions down in relation to the Guards Barracks in Sligo. As I says, I did put a proposal forward that a delegation of us would meet with the Minister. This building is as Councillor Grady said, built in 1940. The whole reason for the building to be transferred over to a new site is because it was not suitable. As I says, we have a duty of care for the people that we represent in the Garda station, as well as the people that come to the Garda station. And I think it's a political decision here on this, and I think what we should be doing now, and we need to be setting a date and a time to meet with the Minister and confront him head on in relation to this. We had meetings here with the Guards give us a meeting here. They came down from Dublin and met with us, and we never got right responses to to our questions on that day. So I'm proposing here once again that a delegation of us meet with the Minister and have it out with her in relation to this, because, as I says, that ground was bought at a price of 1.2 million. It's public money, and the public need to know exactly what's happening. And I think that we have a duty of care to the people that we represent here to make sure that meeting goes ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you. I too would like to support the motion. I think Councillor Cassery has outlined it very comprehensively, and my colleagues have concurred that it's absolutely unacceptable in this day and age that a public building would not be accessible to all who need to use it and to anyone who wishes to work in it. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy.
Thank you, Gair. Look, I'd like to support the motion, but I think we have to remember that Part M says that where practical, and that building, it is never going to be practical to develop it to get access to all areas. You'd have 3 new buildings built for the cost of doing that. The architects in the OPW are professional, and that is the building regulations. And it's a long time ago since a previous enforcement officer, John Owens, in this council said the words reasonable and practical are in the building regulations for a reason. It's Part M of the regulations. Part L, I think, was referred to earlier, that deals with energy conservation. So Part M is the one that it covers with access for people with disabilities. There's no excuse for it. The new one should have been built, but that building will never, because the cost to get it up to standard would build a new one several times over. Thank you.
Dorothy, do you want to come in on Arthur's question?
I think Councillor Gilroy actually answered that. it's where practicable as well. The OPW has responsibility. It's in the actual reply that it seems like a loophole that these buildings, it's actually exempt because it's an older building, and that's part of the building regulations. So they say OPW and all projects strive to comply with the building regs as far as constraints of the existing buildings allow. But the existing buildings, it's too constrained. So it's kind of a get out of jail, if you pardon the pun clause there. But can I just mention one more thing, and for people to be aware of as well, that the estates management and the OPW, they have proposed new plans for the Sligo Garda station, and 40% of the basic requirements of what the guards need there has been left out of the proposed new plans. Just for everyone to be aware of that as well. And we're talking about our, for Sligo 2030, and, that we're going to be up there with the rest of them in the country. Surely we need a functioning Garda station and a building that is accessible, that is like they're doing great work there. They're solving lots of crime. There's lots of drug crime being solved. There's lots of different initiatives, and there's more staff supposedly coming to the station. I think there's 20 more coming supposedly into a room that's about half the size of the circle here. Like, I don't know, are they going to put them on the roof? Because there's nowhere else for them to go. And it's great that new staff are coming, but there's physically nowhere to put them. And if you actually, and last weekend I was in the Garda station again, and I got another tour, and it is unreal. It'll be worth people's while just to go in and have a look, because you wouldn't. It's just until you see it firsthand, and especially with COVID and their crimes unit again, you'd fit it into a corner with boxes of this room. So what they're achieving with the minimum of services and of facilities is unbelievable. And actually at the JPC meeting, it was commended that they are leading out on certain strategies in the country, not only in Sligo in this region, but in the country, and that they were congratulated on that. So I think that, again, people saying, well, it won't be built, and, we might as well forget about it because this is the answer that you got. But we can't accept it. That 40% of our needs as a county in relation to a Garda station is not being met. So I thank everyone for their support. Thank you.
Councillor Gibbons.
Nobody's knocking the Garda Síochána. Nobody's knocking the resources that they have and what they use. And we do know that they're operating under very restrict resources. But there is still no excuse for what's happening at the moment. I seen a case there a number of years ago. It's actually happened in a few places over the country. I seen people being brought to court because they were wheelchair users that had no access into the courts. The court had to be thrown out because they were allowed to hold on to dignity. The policemen or nobody else was allowed to carry them up the steps. Now that was going back to about 1996, 97. I remember I've been at a protest in Roscommon, or not in Roscommon, in Westport, in relation to the same thing. And it was the Centre for Independent Living organised it at the time, and they came from all over Ireland to highlight the whole thing. They got the courts and everything else readapted. But I really think in relation to this, and this is not a knock on the Gardaí, and it's not a knock on the poor resource staff, what is a knock on is the minister and the wasting of money after buying this site. That site should be started. It should be well up. And
Okay, yeah. Look, we agreed by all.
For everyone. Thanks very much.
Agreed by all. Councillor Healy has a proposal. Can we write to the? Is it agreed to write to the Minister for delegation?
Yeah, thank you, Courier. Just to clarify something with you, this was proposed before with the last Courier. We did get a response back, but I think what we need to be doing now is we need to be setting a date and a time to meet with the Minister, because enough is enough. We can put down all the motion we want until we meet her face to face, come up with the material here we have today and more material, get a visit of the Garda station so we can see, as the delegation that going up, see firsthand, talk to the Gardas as well. So we've a job of work here to do before, but we need to get the commitment from the Minister that you will meet with us. Thank you.
Can we write to the Minister? Yeah, okay, we move on. 26, Councillor Clark.
Okay, here, look, the success of the Wild Atlantic Way and all the spin-offs from it.
Secondly.
the point about it is that every month we see motions coming in here to the council in relation to Mullaghmore, Strandhill, every place else, where we don't have a combined plan prioritised to go and seek funding for. There's no doubt about it that my area in West Sligo, Screamdramard, Dunmorton Beach, Ochra's Head, in Eastkey, Inniscrone, Rathley, are the poor relations in the relation to development and in infrastructure. There is funding there through Active Ireland, and I think there is extra staff being made available to councillors or to councils. Prior to about 3 months ago, we had an informal meeting of the chairs of the municipal districts along with Kevin, and we said the priority for the county was, where we seen the growth, was tourism. And I think that we need to work together to bring a plan together that can draw down funding. And the funding seems to be coming. We have seen 75 million being allocated for 3 projects in the northwest, one in Donegal, one in Cavan to walk over treetops, and one in Westport to wild the Westport House. Now, there's no doubt about it that if we get a right proper programme together for the northwest, for Sligo as capital of the northwest, this needs to be done as a priority for our growth, for our industry, to come back from COVID and everything else. And I know that other members want to speak on this, but I think this is very, very important, and I hope that the executive will take this seriously and put in place this master plan so that we can work from it.
Thank you. I won't add to what Councillor Clark has said very much, because he's covered it all already. I think it's just the success of the Wild Atlantic Way has taken us all by surprise, and we don't have the facilities that others down the country have. And there's lots of different reasons for that, but I would just welcome, I know that we have a tourism strategy, but definitely a tourism infrastructural master plan. And instead of piecemeal applications here and there, and council resources are already stretched enough, trying to put a stopgap here and a stopgap there as situations arise. Whereas if we have the master plan, and I'm hoping and I'm sure that there's work being done on this already, that none of the issues that are cropping up now and every weekend and every week in all these areas, that'll put an end to it, and that there'll be, that everybody will be welcome and that there will be facilities for everyone. Because for years and years we're saying that we don't get enough visitors, we don't get enough of anything to Sligo in the northwest. Now we're getting them and we're not ready for them yet, but we will be ready for them. But definitely I would certainly welcome the infrastructure master plan, because I know without a plan you can't draw down or apply for any funding. So I just give it my wholehearted support.
Councillor Queenan, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I do. I want to second Councillor Clark's motion and agree fully with everything he has said, and with the motion. As he says, tourism is one of the biggest employers in our county. We're a tourism county. We're on the Wild Atlantic Way, and we need somebody on the ground. Now, don't drop the plan. We had Sligo tourism plan a number of years ago. It's fine. When we need a personnel on the ground coordinator, coordinate with all the community council and all the tourism committees around the county, helping them, guiding them, because all these application forms are to fill up for funding. There is funding. There are savings. You want to be master in some of to fill up some of these forms, and you need personnel who are qualified to do it. And one person, I know it's going to put more burden on the council. We discussed this at our last meeting. Councillor Clark was chair. We will need more staff in our council, and I'll be fully for it. And I do, with interest, I do see Councillor Gibbons as a motion down with taking away the property tax. I don't know where we're going to get the money from. We'll discuss that in a few minutes. So I do support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Queen and Councillor Walsh.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Welly as well was trying to come in there. Just with the two here.
They come to your watch if they don't.
Councillor Walsh.
Thanks, Rosalie.
Sorry, Tom.
He knows chair was speaking here.
Thanks, Cahir. I fully support the motion. I know we've had discussions about this before. I understand the tourism strategy will be coming up again for renewal, and I think it's important. I know I proposed before that a number of other local authorities across the country have hubs within the local authorities, in some cases in their municipal areas on tourism, and staffing allocated to this. I agree with what Councillor Queenan says. We do need more staff in this area, and I personally would like to see this tourism side of things taken back into the local authority, and the members having greater input into it. We have a number of parts of our existing county Sligo tourism plan has to be implemented yet. I know the director is working on the festival and event strategy, which is due to be finalised in the coming months. And I look forward to that, and I look forward to the recruitment of a festival and events manager as part of the last strategy. So I fully agree with the motion, but likewise, I'd like to see this piece of work taken back into the local authority and staffed accordingly.
Now, Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Just to say that I fully support this very timely motion, and I suppose we've been victims of our own success because of the Wild Atlantic Way, the success of that, and because of this changing time with the amount of people that we've staycations due to COVID, this has brought a huge demand on the different seaside areas. I mean, we've only to look on the road now. One time you would see one mobile camper and an odd occasion, and now the amount of mobile campers on the road, it's incredible, and we need to put facilities in place. But I'm all for putting facilities in place through a master plan as a framework, and I do agree with the other speakers. We do need staff completely allocated to the area of ongoing development of our tourism offer. Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think this is a really worthwhile suggestion, and I would completely concur with it. I was shocked. I was in Kerry recently, and every little village I went into had a public toilet. Now, they're obviously the gold plate, but I think that's what we need to be basing ourselves on. We have to be able to provide the same level of facilities as the Kerrys of this country. And it's long been mooted in this chamber that our neighbouring counties of Mayo and Donegal, I think, have 2 or 3 tourism officers within their council structures. And so we are unfortunately lagging behind on this, and we do need to try and improve it. So I'd wholeheartedly agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Healy.
I want to agree with the motion as well. It's a very important motion because, as he says, the master plan. We're talking about the Wild Atlantic Way. I think what we have an opportunity here is not just look at the Wild Atlantic Way, as you're aware yourself, Eric. There's a lot of areas that is not in on the Wild Atlantic Way. So we should be looking at the county as a whole and not just looking at the Wild Atlantic Way. I think if we have a master plan and we have one opportunity to get it, we need to make sure that we're representing all the areas and that we can set out something there that might be different than everywhere else. That might attract more people into the area because we have something different to offer. As well as that, as Councillor Maguire says, there's been down in Kerry. What we need to be doing is we need to be tying in with these other local authorities that have the tourism going for the length they have, and find out exactly where they made the mistakes and where they got it right, so that we're making sure that we have a template that we can work off. But it's in a very important place. But as like that, I hope it's not left sitting on a shelf now. There's, as it says, this is in front of us. We need to get people behind it. We need to get staff in for it. And as it says, it's something that we can lead out on. And as it says, tourism is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. Let's look at not just this generation, but the next generation and how we can build on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilroy.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Yes, I'd like to fully support it. We do need a master plan, but sometimes I suppose we just have to say Sligo was surprising was the slogan a few years ago, but it's not surprising anymore. Everyone's found it and they love what they say. So our landscape is buying them, and they're here to stay, and that has to be. I suppose all of the issues that are listed there come under SPC2, and we have been looking at them all, but maybe this master plan might be the impetus to get that pushed a little bit further. Just one thing that Mullet Moorhead there at the end, there's been a great move recently to put how would I put it, an indicative one-way system in place around Mullaghmore Head, where there's a sign, flashing sign to turn people in at the gate lodge so that they all go in the one direction so you don't have traffic meeting. That's a wonderful idea. I don't know if it has any actual place in law, or is it just a recommendation for people that they have to go that way. But it is working. It's keeping a flow on the traffic. I had suggested something similar for Rockley. Definitely needed on the Horseshoe, because what's happening is Google Maps is bringing people in the wrong direction. They don't actually see the best part of the view because it's out their back window. So small things like that can be addressed at local level and can be fed into the master plan. They're simple ideas, but nobody knows where to go with these ideas or how to actually work them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bray.
Very brief. I note that the Director of Service in her report points out that the council, because of resources, isn't or won't be in a position to begin drafting a master plan until the second half of 2022. And she also points out that a plan cannot be put on a statutory footing as it doesn't have any legislative backing. And in that context, I wonder, given that we won't see any progress on it until late next year, would it not be wiser to include it as part of our county development plan? Thank you.
Sorry, can I hear like a...
Yes, Dorothy.
Might start, yeah. Well, actually, the county development plan does acknowledge and recognise, and it does actually refer to the provision of, I suppose, particularly maybe land zoning and for all types of recreation facilities, including, I suppose, tourism facilities. But could I just say, I certainly agree with all of the comments and sentiments of the members in relation to tourism and tourism facilities. And certainly you're right in the sense that we do need to be aiming for the provision of top quality facilities. And I think what Councillor Clark in his motion, he did outline there that it was for toilet facilities, car parking, for camper vans and road access and signage. So it is kind of the basic infrastructural facilities that I think he was referring to. Now, I have to disagree in another sense that while the Wild Atlantic Way has been absolutely brilliant for this part of the world, and I think for all of the West Coast, I think it's unfair to say that West Sligo and places like Aughrish and Innisgrone have not benefited to the same extent. We're very conscious that, and Councillor Healy, I think, said it there, we're very conscious that, okay, we certainly look at the full county and the whole county, particularly in the context of the pipeline of projects that we have. And we are trying to address the gaps and the deficits, particularly in relation to tourism infrastructure or recreational infrastructure provision in the county. And certainly we give as much attention to West Sligo and South Sligo as we possibly can. Now, all of you will be aware, particularly the development and preparation of plans on the development of infrastructure and the lead-in time it takes. It takes a significant amount of time. We all know the length of time the development of the greenways we were talking about earlier takes. So it's not something that can be turned around overnight. I do agree, all right, that while we have a tourism plan, and Councillor Walsh mentioned, we have a tourism development plan that's still in place, it's still current. It will be up for renewal, I would safely say, I think it's 2023, 2022, 2023. So we will be looking at that, but that is the broad tourism thing. It includes marketing as well as infrastructure, as well as facilities, as well as thematic areas and all of that. And that is still in place, and we're still working to deliver on that. And I have to say as well that the council has invested an awful lot in tourism development and promotion over the last number of years, and a significant amount, a lot more than what we would have been in the past. And we hope that that will continue. And obviously it's up to members at budget time to make sure that funding is in the budget to make sure that we can deliver on these. The other thing I have to say is that we have a fantastic team. I have a fantastic team working here, particularly on that whole area of tourism and recreational infrastructure provision. And in fairness, they have gone beyond and above anything that could be expected to be delivered. And they are looking at, I suppose, this whole infrastructure provision across the county. It's not just for the hotspots that people might think from Strandhill to Mullaghmore or Ross's Point. We are looking at it on a county-wide basis, and that's why we are putting forward things like the greenways, we are putting forward other towns, and we are looking at it, I suppose, we have to get funding, we have to get capital investment. So the schemes that we look at, I suppose, are the town and village, particularly for things like signage and accessibility, and maybe to lay the groundworks for major projects down the line. We look at we use the tourism or the town and village scheme, we use the outdoor recreation scheme, we use the RRDF, the Rural Regeneration Development Scheme. They are what we have at the minute. And we also have, or that are available to us at the minute, but we also have developed a very close working relationship with Fáilte Ireland. And Fáilte Ireland have quite an amount of funding for capital projects at this point in time. We're not always successful because the criteria can be very difficult, but we have achieved funding for Inniscrone and Ross's Point just last week. That was approved. So we will be moving to provide those top quality facilities, particularly in the area of toilet facilities and so forth, and shower facilities at these locations, at these premier resort locations in Sligo. And we would hope that that will be expanded on over the next number of years, and that we will get more of the resorts included. So look at it, this is not easy. We have a huge amount of work on at the minute, and particularly in the context of the tourism development plan, which we will have to look at with Sligo Tourism over the next while. We will have to look at reviewing that and putting a new one in place, and then to have what I think is a more technical, it's a more infrastructural pipeline of projects that I think members are looking for. We will see what we can do, but as I say, our staff resources are just stretched beyond all possibilities, and I think it would be unfair of me to ask them to try and deliver this along with all of the other capital projects that they're supervising, and along with all of the other projects they are trying to get into the different funding schemes as to become available. So I just have to reiterate that the staff are stretched, and I think that if we could get moving on this by the end of 2022, I think that's as early as I could ask them to do this. But certainly we will keep it under review. And I know that we've been working with the area offices and the infrastructure department to make sure that additional facilities are put in place in other areas, toilet facilities, picnic benches and so forth. And we will be reviewing that at the end of the summer. And certainly, look at we certainly will keep this under wraps. And when I said that it can't be put on a statutory footing, I think Councillor Clark asked that. It's not. This is not in any piece of legislation. That's what I meant. So, but it is something that we would like to do, and it is. We would like to have a pipeline of projects. We have that in our own mind. We know exactly the areas we want to cover, and particularly as well as that, we have to work with community groups for a lot of those projects that we work with. So there's a lot of things that we have to put in place before we can start maybe working in a particular area. And that's what we are trying to do. That's what the staff are trying to do. But certainly we will look to see what we can do in this area by way of a master plan, by way of a pipeline of projects for different areas, particularly along the Wild Atlantic Way, but not forgetting the areas like Turbercurry and Ballymote either, because they are of equal consideration.
Thanks, Dorothy.
I'll be brief.
Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Sorry.
It's basically just to summarise what's been said by Dorothy. We're busy. We're getting stuff. I mean, for example, this year, and it's on the agenda later for discussion, we've got funding for 2 major public toilets to be delivered in Ross's Point and in Inniscrone. That comes out of the blue. That wasn't in any plan that we had. We're going to take those projects on and we're going to deliver them, but there's implications for the organisation going forward. A master plan is, by its nature, high level, And I see that there are two options to deliver on that. And one is, as Councillor Bree has said, perhaps through the county development plan might be a way of doing that, because we simply don't have resources to allocate to, master plans to deliver them within 6 months that they can be in place for next year. So we have to figure out what's the best mechanism we have available to address the needs that the council have, and that certainly is one option. A second option may be, last week or on Friday last, we've made a submission to the department, and it's something that's been discussed here for the last 2.5 years. It was known as a land asset management team. We've made a submission in relation to a regional growth centre team, because we have our designation as a regional growth centre. Our view as a senior management team is that that particular team will bring forward the projects that are going to see Sligo develop as a regional growth centre. The obvious examples of that are the two URDF schemes that we've got funding for over the last couple of years. Those schemes have to be brought to a point whereby the infrastructure directorate or the planning directorate can go ahead and deliver those schemes on the ground. But there's so much work to be done in advance. It is possible that a tourism master plan could be part of the work programme for that team, if we're fortunate enough to get the agreement of the department to put that team in place. We're actively working on that. We've been talking about it for 2.5 years. We really need to get it in place now. There are other examples across the country. For example, Limerick have a dedicated team that drives forward the development of Limerick. We need that for Sligo. Hopefully we'll get it from the department, and tourism master plan is one example of the type of work that we would envisage that team would deliver for Sligo.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome wholeheartedly what Mr. Gilfeather is just after outlining, and that's what I had in mind. And I think us as a county have to prioritise tourism. It's not for the first time that myself and Dorothy come to differ or agree to differ on what's delivered for West Sligo, especially Dunmore and Strand. And I'll tell you a very brief story. 3 months ago when the summer started, I got a call that there was no parking place at Dunmore and Strand because it was full of camper vans. So I went down to the camper vans and I spoke to them, and they were from every part of Ireland, and they never were at Dunmore and Strand before. Such a beautiful place without toilets. Such a beautiful place. And I asked one after the other, where do you usually go? Well, we go to France. But if we knew this would go, we'd definitely come here on an annual tour to it, because it's such a beautiful beach. So that's what we have, and that's what we're underselling in the county. Dunmore and Strand is an example. Arthur's Head is another. Eastkey is another. Definitely understanding, and there's no doubt about it that Mullaghmore, Ross's Point, Strand Hill has always got priority in this county over West Sligo. That's a fact.
Councillor Gibbons.
Everybody's talked about the work that's going into this and the tourism and whatever else. Sligo Tourism Board. It's funding from this council in relation to, we have members of this council on it. What part are they playing in this? Don't mind me asking.
To be fair to Sligo Tourism, they are a good working group. Anthony Gray is now the chair of it. They are working on all this type of thing in difficult times, I have to say, over the last year. They have been working on all these issues with the council. They do work with the council. All the issues you're talking about, I 100% agree with them all. It's a good motion, Councillor Clark. It's a meeting on its own. Let's be honest. It's a meeting on its own. We, as Tom has said, there is a submission made to the department for a working group like this. Sligo Tourism, there is a number of business people involved. There's a number of councillors involved. A lot of it would be on a voluntary basis as well, and we have to see that for what it is too. But the ideas are there. The ideas are there to put in place, but we need input from everybody. Kerry was mentioned. They sell sand in the Sahara in Kerry, to be fair to them, the local people.
What about it? I'm one of those members of that board. You're one of those members, and there's a number of members, but I didn't get one mention here.
I agree. I was going to mention when it was over, yeah.
Because the people that's on that are dedicated people.
Yeah.
And they're doing a huge amount. Of
course.
I think that they should get a mention. Reality to it. Thanks very much.
Great. It's an hour and 10 minutes on 5 motions. They were deferred from the last meeting and we're not at this yet. And could I ask that maybe when the meeting is over that we have a brief word between us all as councillors. 27, Councillor Queenan.
I won't be long. First of all, Cahill, I haven't got, I never got a report. Could the Scurrius and the reply from the director? And I just say that I know some time is against us. We've spent the last half an hour talking about tourism. The pier in Liscone has got very, very busy, and it's great to see so many people using the pier in Liscone in the recent years. But it needs an upgrade, and to do that, we need a feasibility and technical study. I know it's going to cost money, but we're going nowhere until we get that in place. So I'm asking the council, is there any funding available to do such a study?
Yeah.
I see you.
Tom will read the report. If Councillor Quinn didn't get the report, I'll just read it out. It's quite short. A feasibility and technical study of Innisfrone Pier and Harbour could potentially cost close to €100,000. The Department of Agriculture, Fishery and Marine provides 75% funding for actual construction works at piers and harbours. They don't fund any studies or design of works. There are no other viable funding streams available at present under the Infrastructure Directorate. Given the aforementioned, it will not be possible to secure funding for a feasibility and technical study of the pier and harbour.
I'm not happy. Thanks, Tom, for that. We'll look at it. We'll go and keep up yet. There might be other avenues for funding could be got in the future. So, but thank you, Tom, for your reply.
Go here, look, the single biggest investment that most individuals will make in their lives, their working lives, is to buy their family home. This can only be achieved with a mortgage. Over countless years, a lot of people make exceptional sacrifices to provide their families with a home. I have spoken to a number of people over the years since the introduction of the tax on the family home. Some of these homeowners never had a holiday with their children. Their families don't own a car, and a lot of niceties in life that it had to do without. A lot of people naively think that when they make that last mortgage payment, that the home will be 100% theirs, but this is not the case. Under the policies of the coalition government of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Green Party, the reality is that people in this country will no longer fully own their homes. These families are being penalised for using their own initiative because they provided a roof over their heads from their hard-earned resources. The money that they have already been paid or been taxed on, which has paid for these mortgages, right, has not cost the state a penny. Mr. Enda Kenny, ex-leader of the Fine Gael party, made a false pre-election promise in 2011 that no person would have to pay a tax on their family home. This would be morally wrong. He was not a person of his word. We've seen a lot of this both locally and nationally in the past. I would ask you all to support this motion. I think it is wrong and very wrong to think of the taxes, even an ordinary 5/8 that's working, sacrifices they make, and yet they pay taxes on their salaries, what they earn, then they come along to take a mortgage, they have to pay on that. And what I would say in relation to it, it's a wrong form of taxation on people, and it is extortion, and it can't be described as anything else. Thanks very much.
Sir Healy.
It's unjust tax, and I'd like to know from my fellow councillors what they think that this property tax that we're paying into, where does it go? Because I'm aware that back in 2014, several million went into Irish Water, not alone just from our property tax, but also from our road tax. And we know ourselves here and the condition of the roads that we have down here, and how we're asking then people to put money out of their own pockets to pay for low-cost tax, or to pay for community improvement schemes and all like that. But we're still looking for them to pay property tax, road tax and everything else. So this is an unjust and unfair tax. And Fianna Fáil leaders and Fine Gael leaders have also said that they thought it was unfair tax, yet they're still bringing it in, so it has to be abolished. That's the only way out of it.
The members' room. Gino?
Yeah, there's two of us, Chair. I'll go first. The tax was supposed to increase funding to local authorities, but the figures show that there's been an overall drop. Before the introduction of local property tax, one of the main sources to the local authorities was the general purpose grant. However, it was replaced in 2015 with an allocation from the local property tax. In 2008, the general purpose grant amounted to 979 million. In 2009, it was 832 million. In 2010, it was nearly 800 million. After the property tax was introduced, the funding shrank dramatically to roughly between 458, 453 and 500 million. These figures show up the line that was told about the property tax being used to better local public services. This explains why basic services like libraries, cleaning, repairs, funding for youth services have all been run down. I support the motion.
Who else have we there?
I'm here listening to like nobody wants to pay tax. I am a taxpayer. Nobody wants to be paying property tax, so we get away with it. But the reality, and I'm surprised with the left-wing parties, they're the only country in Europe that don't support a property tax. We have to expand our tax system. No, and I'm not here to defend. I understand well, no one wants to pay money to the government. But the property tax is here. It will be here. And when Mary Lou gets power, which I predict she will in the next election, it won't change one iota. Let's not cut anyone. The Greens are there now. They're all in the up because we need a property tax. We spent the last hour talking about tourism infrastructure. Where will we go unless we had our funding on to our 5% or 10%, which we get every year to back up the fund of these infrastructure, and that's coming from our property tax. We'll have another debate on this, I suppose, next week. But what we've done in our county, and I'll say it now, is that the line we have taken 2 years ago, and I was the person that proposed it, and I got plenty of stick, and you, Cahill, was second. It meant almost 7 million into our county to help us our tourism projects, our footpaths, and other issues. And Mr. Galfeather can verify and write out any time. So I'd be opposed to that. It's only a PR stunt anyway. It's not going to change nothing what we do here today. The property tax is here and will be here to stay.
Chair, can I just come in for one last thing, just to reiterate the need for a vacant site levy?
That's different.
Because you're bringing the money in that way.
Well, you can take that's different.
Thanks to members' room. Anybody else, Councillor Healy?
Just through the chair, there is ways of, we're not against a tax, we are against this property tax. There is ways how we can generate more money. But I'd like to ask Councillor Queenan, before 2014, before the property tax came in, how was this council funded? It was funded through central funding. That was cut from us. So, I mean, and at the end of the day, you said you ring fence 7 million. 7 million out of the pockets of the people of Sligo. That's where it came from. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we won't go into that debate. I'll have a debate with Mr. Healy at the next when we're talking about the property tax next week, whenever we're having it.
Councillor Gibbons.
The one thing that I would have to say was, I hate that argument. We're the only country in Europe. Well, you know what? I care about Ireland. As far as I'm concerned, that's takes priority. Whatever other countries does, that's their own business. England jumped out of the way and pulled out of Europe. We didn't. We didn't follow suit. Simple as that. But the one thing that I would say, we heard this same argument with Irish water. It was something that we were paying for 3 times, and all of a sudden we were going to be taxed for the water that we were paying. Oh, every country in Europe pays water. Well, you know what? The people spoke, and the people changed that. And I'll tell you, there's 1 or 2 parties out there hurting even over that decision in relation to Irish water. And as Councillor Healy said there, 2013, that tax on people's homes came in. The country survived long before that. And I'll tell you something else in relation to it. We built an awful lot more local authority bloody well houses than we had since. And that is the reality since the bloody well local authority tax came in. It has done nothing, and that is the reality. It's been used as an excuse, as a tax to pulverise the ordinary 5-8, and that's exactly what it is. I'm very surprised at you, Councillor Queenan.
Anyone else want to come in? Is that motion agreed?
No, I'm not going to read that motion. It's a popular motion. And what's more, let me also quite clearly say two things. Any local authority house are not paying property tax. It's people that own their own house who are paying the property tax. As far as Irish Water is concerned, there's not free water. Every small farmer in the county is paying water, and every business person is paying water. And yet, a big CEO who could have a mansion of a house out the country, he could have 10 cars working every week, he gets free water, and a small farmer beside him is paying for water. So the thing is not free.
Well, you can thank Fianna Fáil for doing that, because Sligo was set up as a pilot scheme for that.
We'll take a vote.
You were with Fianna Fáil at that time too.
You were in Fianna Fáil too, by the way.
Right, Councillor.
Don't forget that.
You get the membership.
We're going to take a vote. We're going to take a vote. Kevin, please.
Councillor Baker.
Yes.
Councillor Free. Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Clark. Councillor Connolly.
Against.
Councillor Fox.
Against.
Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Gilroy. Against. Councillor Healy. Councillor McSherry.
Against.
Councillor Maguire.
Sanders is great, isn't it?
Councillor Delaney.
Against.
Who are you done with?
Oh, it's just coming in the middle.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Grady.
Against.
Councillor Queenan.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
And Councillor Walsh. Thank you.
Okay.
4 for the motion, 13 against.
A seconder for Councillor Mananis.
Look, I don't want to debate it, and you can take it off the agenda.
Thank you. I'm going to defer 30. 31, Councillor Casserly.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I'd just like to welcome the report and also the works that have been carried out, and note that the recent direction of warning signs helping inform beach users that caution is needed when using the second beach, and for people to be aware of the tide times. I'd just like to welcome. It was actually just a query that was given, that was asked on behalf of a few, just in relation to the new coastal protection works there at Ross's Point. So I'm happy with the report. Thank you.
And seconding, second the motion, but I think it's timely that it was placed, because people, up until now, people generally could walk along the edge of the tide on the second beach in Ross's Point. However, when there is a high tide, such as we have today or yesterday or over the weekend, people on the northern end of the second beach cannot walk back due to the boulders that have been placed at the dunes in the centre of the beach. So there have been significant changes. And I must admit, and people have approached me, they have concerns about possibly strangers who mightn't be too familiar with the beach, who could be caught over at the northern end of the beach, especially elderly people who wouldn't be able to climb the boulders. It's something that we would want to keep in mind and see if there's some solution to it. I appreciate there's difficulties because the property is private, and I suppose there would be significant cost implications if we were to put in some type of boardwalk. But I think it's correct that we should acknowledge there is a difficulty there and see if there can be a solution.
Tom, I'll ask you to come in.
I think Councillor Brea summed it up well there. We'd like to provide an alternative access to the beach. That would appear to be, in terms of a proper designed and a permanent solution, that would probably be something in the way of a boardwalk that would require engagement and agreement of the private landowners. Would be challenging from the point of view that it's in an SSC, obviously, but that would be the desirable long-term provision at Ross's Point. It'll obviously be very costly as well. In between that, though, we will need certainly in advance of the 2022 season to see if we can provide an access further up from the current one, because there is that issue there, as you say, Councillor Bree. That's why the warning signs are in place. So we're looking at an interim solution, and we're looking at we would like to look at a permanent solution there, because obviously the priority there was the coastal protection works. There was significant erosion in the dunes. The golf club, in fairness to them, carried out significant repair works to the planning permission they had. We, in turn, had to carry out significant repair works to the existing access, and we had to protect that in a manner that was better than what we've done heretofore, because we've been finding after every winter we're going down there and we're repairing the access. But we need to come up with a better solution, both in the medium term and in the long term.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I did get that information as well from the engineer in charge when I asked him, and he did outline that it is an SAC, that it's private property, so it's a long process, but by what Tom has said, it sounds like eventually some sort of another solution will be found, and that's very welcome. So I'd just like to thank you again for the report.
Okay.
Second that.
Yeah, I'll be very brief because the report is comprehensive. So I'd just like to welcome the 7 new shelters at Grange, Clifney, Cartron, Cairns Road, and on the Mall outside the hospital, and also welcome the programme that's been developed with the local authority and the NTA of more shelters that will be provided over the next couple of years. And I'd also like to thank Declan Noon for his work on this and liaising with the NTA on that. It's very welcome. Hopefully these 7 will be in place by the end of the year. We've asked for them, and everybody here has made submissions and asked for them over the years, so it's great at least that they're recognised, and I have added some more to the list. But for now, it's good at least that we're on the radar of the NTA and that they're finally providing the shelters that are required. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy.
Just to support the motion, as Councillor Casterly says, we've all been raising this. I think Councillor of this council, since it came in, Councillor Fox was the first on the very first meeting that he and I attended here to raise it. But I know it had been raised in the previous council as well, but I think everybody was on board and that did help it. And it's been very much welcomed by the communities.
Councillor McSherry, did you your hand up?
Thank you very much, Cahirlock. Yeah, I'd like to welcome this development, in particular in Cartron and Cairns Road. I am, however, a bit disappointed in the lack of provision for a well-argued and well-needed bus stop at First Sea Road. I first raised this back in November 18, and that's some time ago, so we just have to keep on the case. But I suppose some news is better than no news. Thank you, Cahirlock.
Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to support the motion, I did table a motion here when I was first elected. I'd also like to, and I'm aware that everybody else is very supportive of the motion. I'd be calling for bus stops at Ross's Point, Kearney and Ransborough, outside Ransborough School, and at the Carroll Retail Park at the next NTA meeting. They're badly needed in those locations. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Foss. Councillor Gibbons.
I'd like to support the motion, and what I would say in relation to it, I think myself there is a need for bus shelters wherever there's bus stops, and it's feasible to put it in place. But the one thing that I would ask when the bus stops are going in, that they don't use the same ones that they used before with the perspex glass in them. I tell you exactly what happened. There was the likes of Tracy Avenue, above Cartron, different areas like that. They were that badly vandalised, that had to be taken away from those areas. I would prefer to see a more solid structure going in relation to that, because they are needed, and the actions of a few vandals should not leave people deprived of bus stops or bus shelters. Thanks very much.
Councillor Healy.
I just want to welcome the bus shelters that's there, and maybe what we should be doing, I've raised it a couple of times with TII, I think that every town and village should at least get one bus stop put in their areas, which means they should have a map and set out of exactly how we're going to work these and when the areas are coming available. Because I know in Colooney and Ballantor and Ballygawley we've raised the issue of it. That's nearly 4 years ago now, waiting for the ones to come to Colooney, and we haven't come yet. So I think that we need a mapping exercise by TII on areas that's going to get them. And I think every major town like Ballymore, Tubbercurry, Dishmead, Colani, they should have also be included in all this and make sure that they get them, because a lot of people in them areas are dependent on the bus service to and from town. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
I won't repeat what Councillor Healy just have to say, and just to say that there's nothing in West Sligo on this list either, and you know, it should be included.
Members' room.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. This is back very soon on the agenda, because last month I had a motion seconded by Councillor O'Boy for the provision of a bus shelter on the First Sea Road, because of the huge need, as all the councillors have outlined, but also we have many wheelchair users from the Woodhaven centre there, and that certainly they above all need the benefit of a bus shelter. So I think it's very important. We can all go to Rathcormac and see the excellent job that Councillor Keening put in place, the 2 bus shelters on each side of the road there for the benefit of the residents of that area. So that could be an example, but I think it's something that we need to keep on the agenda and keep reminding the NTA the much need for it. Thank you, Kyle.
Chair, I just like to be supportive of the motion as well.
Okay, we are meeting the NTA too today, so we can discuss then those issues. Okay, number 33, Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. I note the report, and I'm aware that it is an SAC and an SPA. However, the response doesn't address the fact that there is a pathway there or an access to the beach which is eroding. It's actually crumbling away. So it's getting more unsafe by the day, and that's something that I had asked to be addressed. I note that this says an update will follow, so I'm wondering whether we can leave this on the motion in the hope that we would have an update in relation to the consultation with the National Parks and Wildlife in September. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy, do you wish to come in?
Motion 100%, and that there was a problem there when the car park was closed off as well. The people were all walking down the road and parking in different areas. So look, to welcome the motion, and we also need for other beaches we have the same problem. It's repeated across the county, so it's a county-wide issue to be looked at. Thank you.
The members' room.
Yeah, Cathaoirleach, I want to support the motion also, and to outline, as Councillor Gilroy has said, the issue that was there when the car park was marked off. And there is an ongoing issue there with the road, with the entrance into the beach before you get to that pathway. And I had a motion down in the past about that, and I hope that in the future it's something that this council will look at, the entrance and the road and entrance and pathway into Collinamore Beach.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be supportive of the motion as well, Chair.
Councillor Gibbons.
Eric, we had an option a number of years ago, was to buy the property that was there belongs to the residents of Collinamore, and it was extended into a car park. And that was something I think myself that through the enforcement end of it here in the council itself, it was, I know a lot of councillors had pushed for it at the time, and the residents was open to negotiations, and it just never happened. And I'm just looking at maybe what is the possibility of maybe trying to re-enter the negotiations again and try and put some sort of a decent car park within that area. The land is there for it. It just means that it needs to be upgraded. Thanks very much.
Councillor Maguire, do you want to come in?
Thanks, and thank you to everyone for the support. But I would ask that it's left on the agenda until September, when we might get an update as outlined in the report in relation to a meeting with the Parks and Wildlife.
Is that agreed?
Thank you.
Okay, 34, Councillor Bree.
Well, here, look, there's been a general welcome, I suppose, for the funding provided for the proposed new outdoor water-based activity facility centres, which are to be constructed at Ross's Point and Innisgrove. And we're advised that the centres will provide hot water, showers, changing and toilet facilities, secure storage, induction spaces, and they'll be fully wheelchair accessible. I've had constituents ask if it's the intention of having the centres open all year round, particularly taking into consideration the increased interest in open water sea swimming. People are also anxious to know what level of fee, if any, will be charged for the use of the facilities. And in this context, I'm anxious to know the number of full-time staff which will be required to manage the facilities, the estimated annual payroll costs, and the subsidy or the level of funding which will be provided by Fáilte Ireland for the facilities on an annual basis. And given that we are working on this initiative in partnership with Fáilte Ireland, I presume that some type of draft operational plans must have been discussed in advance of the grant being announced. And constituents also wish to know when can we expect to see the planning submitted and construction work commence on these facilities. I have to acknowledge that the acting chief executive indicated earlier that while we're working in partnership with Fáilte Ireland, it would appear that they took initiatives without advising us of their full plan. Maybe I'm misreading that, but possibly the director of service or the acting chief executive might advise us.
Okay. The second the motion is Councillor Fox.
Thanks, Chair. I too have been approached by many people in relation to this issue. I think it's a timely motion. People are like to go to the seaside, and I think in winter months it's important that the facilities are made available to people who are indoors more often in winter months. So I support the motion, and thank you.
Councillor Walsh and then Councillor Quinn. Thanks, Cahirlock. I support the motion. Had a number of motions down in relation to public toilets and Ross's Point over the last 2 years, and I welcome the funding as part of nationally 22 as part of a €22 million fund for 9 centres. Sligo has done very well, and I'm sure there's a lot of planning work and design to go into the 2 units that have been planned with Fáilte Ireland. So that's it. Thank you. Councillor Quinn, and I can see when the hand goes up. So now away you go.
We can't see you. We're in the dark. But anyway, I'd like to support the motion, and in particular, I'd like to welcome the proposed new toilets for Enniscone. We got plenty of negative publicity over the years about poor toilet facilities in our tourism town. I want to welcome the funding. I pay Timothy Doherty in our team and Rio Bailey. They've been working on the ground. The site has been identified, and we're expecting the toilet facilities to be in place in 2023. Yes, I would like maybe Doherty to give a full report at a future meeting. But it's welcome news, and I'm delighted that Enniscone won the lucky ones on this occasion. Thank you.
Councillor Casserly.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think everybody here has had motions in relation to, on this side anyway, in relation to Ross's Point and improving beach facilities there. So I'd just like to support the motion and also to commend the work that the staff have done. And as Dorothy has said earlier on, that there's so many projects happening, some that we don't see and a lot that we do. So the Sligo Walks is another one that I think needs to be highlighted again, because we're really getting national publicity on that. I know that's nothing to do with the motion, but just to commend the staff and all the work that they're doing in relation to tourism. Thank you.
Dorothy.
Okay, thank you, Cahirlock. Yes, we certainly welcome the funding that has been made available by Fáilte Ireland for these facilities for water sports activities. That's the investment scheme there, that's the name of it. And Sligo, we had to bid for these, we had to compete, as did all other local authorities. Now, there was meetings with Fáilte Ireland in advance of this, so we were aware that they wanted to improve the facilities on the Wild Atlantic Way, particularly in relation to toilet facilities and so forth, and shower facilities. So at this point in time, we only got approval last week, the full approval. We just got notification of that yes, Enniscone and Ross's Point have been successful. So Fáilte Ireland would also have done a certain amount of work internally with their whatever appropriate department in Fáilte Ireland in relation to a design and the type of facilities that is envisaged. Now, it will be over to the County Council to manage these and to operate them, and that the subject or the details of that have yet to be discussed in detail with Fáilte Ireland. But I would imagine over the next probably couple of months that will be the subject of discussion at our meetings. We know that we're going to have, it'll be, Councillor Queenan is right, I suppose between the planning and between the construction of them, it will be, we don't expect that they will be operational until 2023. So in relation to their opening during the winter months, I suppose if there is demand for them, that'll be obviously something that will have to be taken into consideration with the area offices and the infrastructure department, who will have a responsibility then for managing these and operating them along the lines of what they have been doing. But all of that has yet to be finalised, the operation of them, and it will be the subject of a management agreement between ourselves and Fáilte Ireland. So we certainly will keep members informed of progress in this regard going forward.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'm going to let Councillor Maguire wants to come in, and then
Thank you.
Tom, and then Councillor Bree, you can finish.
Thank you, Ciara. I want to support the motion and to commend the staff who have applied and worked with Fáilte in relation to securing that 19 million. It's very welcome, and as Councillor Bree has outlined, there's been a huge explosion of outdoor swimming, or as it's now known as wild swimming, across the country, and lots of it here in Sligo, and it's great that we are getting facilities to assist that. Thank you.
To acknowledge and thank the Director of Service for the report. I think it has provided us with as much information as is available at this particular time, at least if we can pass the information on to our constituents, and I assume we will get an up-to-date report as the meetings continue with Fáilte Ireland. Thank you, Cathaoirleach.
Thank you. 35, Councillor Casserly.
Thank you. Sorry now. Yeah, to invite the Minister to Sligo to pay tribute to the staff for the monumental efforts that they have made during COVID, particularly during the early weeks. So the PUP was launched in last March, 12 months, and over 500,000 people received a payment in the first month. Over 1.7 million PUP applications were processed. Normal claims received 9 times the normal claim load. The online activity increased 6-fold in 2020 compared to 2019, 600 staff, and I just have to say personally I want to thank them for their help, and I'm sure everybody else had to ask queries from them, particularly in the early days when everybody was so worried and a lot of people had lost their income immediately and I suppose without notice, and the fact that they were able to get so many people paid and get money to these people as quickly as possible. And then if there were any delays or if people had any questions or queries, they were more than helpful, and they were snowed under, but they were more than helpful in their in giving information and helping people who needed assistance. So I think it's just it's appropriate that that these people are thanked. It's important to thank everybody and the staff there. They're working behind the scenes all the time. They're not high profile. They're not in the shop window of any county. They're just doing the work behind the scenes. But I just think, all the frontline workers are being acknowledged publicly. But I think it's very, very important that our social welfare staff are acknowledged publicly as well. So just whenever I suppose the restrictions allow that the Minister be invited to Sligo just to pay tribute to these people who have worked so hard, and I think that they deserve that credit and thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gibbons, and then the members' room.
To thank one sector of the public service, I think myself it doesn't go far enough. I agree with the motion in sentiment, but there was a lot of people out there during the pandemic that worked through the whole lot. We have the staff within this council, we have outdoor staff, we have the supermarket workers, We have people that provided services to people with disabilities within their homes. All of those people comes in. And I think personally myself, that somebody higher than the Minister for Social Protection should be brought down, or there should be a thank you, and overall from the government itself, to everyone that put these services into place. I think it is so wrong. There was people out there in the front line of this that really didn't get recognition. The likes of the supermarket workers that was out there. And even in the post offices, I seen going into the post office even to get a stamp. And it was running for months before it came compulsory to wear a face mask. But I think myself, just to take one sector of everybody that was out there, there's an awful lot. I think this should include everybody, not just those in the Department of Social Protection. Thank you.
Okay, the members' room.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be agreeing with Councillor Gibbons and the sentiment of the motion as well, but I don't agree with bringing down the Minister here, maybe somebody higher. I think maybe it's time to go back with the nurses' pay restoration. We can't be continuing to rely on people to do the work and not pay them. If we're bringing down the Minister for State or Minister for Social Protection, what is it, just to give people a clap? You know, times have been tough the last year and a half, and I understand they've all been working hard, as been all the staff. But I don't think thanking one sector and leaving the others behind, especially when the nurses have been on strike and due pay restoration as well. Thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
Just one sentence. I think we have a motion passed in May of last year in relation to this, and all stakeholders, we had agreed that there would be a reception for all those stakeholders when the pandemic is gone. Thanks.
Councillor Casserly will come back to you.
The reason why I put it down is because the majority of the staff that are dealing with this throughout the country actually work in Sligo, and we, you know, they're friends and neighbours and relations and in-laws and outlaws of us all. So it's not that we don't know them, and I think it's appropriate that they be thanked. I know that they worked around the clock, that they haven't had leave, and I know that other staff have as well, and that's just been acknowledged. And I've asked for frontline staff and nurses to have pay increases and to have their to have extra holidays. So it's not sectioning out one in against another, but it's the fact that so many of these staff that they were based in Sligo, so I think that, and it's no big deal. But I do think that it's right that that the staff are acknowledged, so.
Is the motion agreed? I think it's agreed.
Chair, can I take away myself from that motion, because the PUP has been cut for people for no reason, especially in trying times. COVID hasn't been gone, and do not agree with bringing the Minister for Social Protection down. It's taking away people's money. So if you want to put that to a vote, I will be against it.
But it's nothing to do with the PUP as such or the payment. It's a recognition of the staff.
Yeah, but you're bringing down the Minister for Social Protection. They're after cutting the money for people on PUP, taking it down from 350, and now people have to reapply by Tuesday next week, or they're going to lose it. And again, you think it's not as easy to apply for it.
I think it's the motion. It's being complicated and unnecessarily complicated. It's not. It's as straightforward as it says on the tin to acknowledge the work of the staff. That's it.
Is that agreed in?
Well, we acknowledge the work of the staff, but I don't agree with inviting Minister Humphreys down. So
You're
okay.
Okay, Councillor O'Boyle. Yes, Councillor Gibbons. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree. We could go into a lot of things here. Is it agreed or not agreed, or will we go to a vote? Because we could go into everything if you want to go into that. That's fine.
Can I propose an amendment to it?
Yes.
Right. The motion reads that to invite Minister Heather Humphreys to Sligo as soon as possible and within COVID guidelines to visit the Social Welfare Office in Sligo for her to pay tribute to the staff and the monumental efforts they made during COVID, particularly during the early weeks when so many had to cease employment during the pandemic. And then add the following words after it. And further, we invite the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly, to Sligo to pay tribute to the healthcare workers and support staff for their efforts during COVID. And further, we invite the Taoiseach and Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Leo Varadkar, to Sligo to pay tribute to retail workers for their efforts during COVID. And further, we invite the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage, Darragh O'Brien, to Sligo to pay tribute to the local authority workers for their efforts during COVID. And further, we invite the Minister for the Environment, Climate, Communications, Transport, Eamon Ryan, to Sligo to pay tribute to bus and rail workers for their efforts during COVID. And further, we invite the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, to Sligo to pay tribute to the Garda and court services for their efforts during COVID.
Councillor Brady,
And I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, we understand.
But
Can we agree the motion?
We wouldn't want to be accused of selecting one group. I think that's, I suppose.
I second that.
So I'd propose that, and Councillor O'Coyle will second that. So then we're covered. Everyone is included.
Okay, can we agree the motion in front of us, so we take vote on the motion in front of us? Is that the first thing we do? The amendment first, okay. Do you want me to read it again? No. Okay.
No.
Is it agreed?
What's agreed?
Is this motion agreed?
Agreed, the whole has agreed.
That's agreed.
Is that the amendment?
Is that agreed? And so that means the amendment is agreed.
Bring the whole act down, so.
36, Councillor Clark. We've heard 37, Councillor Clark. 38, Councillor Fox.
Yeah, just briefly, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gilroy.
Yeah, myself and Councillor Gilroy have been working on this, and indeed, Councillor O'Grady, I see, had a table of motion back in 2020 in relation to this issue. It's an ongoing issue. I've been asked numerous times to follow it up since I tabled the motion last month, and it's an issue that could be rectified quite simply, I would have thought. The latest report says that the drainage system would involve going through third-party lands. Initial contact was made with the landowner, however, no agreement has been reached. My view is that the water is going on to the third party's owner, the owner of the land next door, and we just need to have it addressed. There are people concerned and very disappointed that nothing's been done, and we need to get this job done as soon as possible. There are people visiting the graves of their loved ones, and the water needs to be diverted away from drains, and the appropriate drainage to be put in place. And hopefully we can get it sorted. It's going on long enough now.
Councillor Gilroy, you second?
Yeah, I second the motion. Look, I was involved in making those initial contacts, and it's not easy. There are problems, and it's not just as simple as we'd like it to be. I too was digging a grave there recently for the former councillor, and a submersible pump wasn't able to take the water out. It was coming in so fast. So just it's something, but I'm assured the work is being done on it. And I spoke to Emer last week about it, and she assures me that work is moving on the upgrading facilities there. So thank you.
The members' room. Your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. Just supporting that motion, but also about the graves there. There's a big wall. I put in a question in as far as the roads department there, I think it was at the time, just to get a railway or a railing up at some of the graves, because you have to walk along a wall to get up to some of the graves. I'm just wondering if that could be kind of a question and come back about it as well. Councillor O'Grady wants to come in as well now.
Councillor O'Grady.
Yeah, thank you, Cahier. Look, and I want to acknowledge Councillor Fox for putting this motion back on the agenda. It has been brought up by a lot of councillors, I think over a period of certainly 15 years. This has been an ongoing issue. And it is a huge issue in the area for people who have to bring their loved ones and bury them in a grave that the water has to be bucketed out of before the coffins are put down. And that is the reality. Now, Councillor Gilroy, and I know he's been involved in negotiations to try and bring it to a conclusion, but I think the time has come when we need to put some acquisition on land around it. I've had somebody to look at, as other councillors have, and they say it's only a matter of putting down a pipe if there was a right to drain into the nearing land, and already that water is going down there. But we have to think, as representatives of the people of that area, it's a dreadful thing that anyone would have to put their loved one down into a grave where water has to be bucketed out of before. So I do think it's a very important issue. It has been on this agenda, as I said, for over 15 years by many councillors of all parties and none. And I think now is the time that we need to start addressing it. Thank you, Cahill.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Fox. Are you happy? Or sorry, Councillor Casserly, first of all. Are you happy with the report?
Yes, I'm happy, and thanks everyone for their participation. Thank you.
Okay, 39, Councillor Fox again.
Yeah, this, briefly, I suppose I'm conscious of time. This is an important issue. The property price register. Yeah.
Councillor Gilroy, second. Sorry.
Yeah. The property price register is used more actively in recent years. It lacks clarity. There are 3 registers on the property price register in the Property Services Regularity Authority's website, and it needs the air code is not being used properly on the information that's been logged on the website, and it is important that the air code is provided on all of the addresses, because it lacks clarity and people use it for comparable valuations. And I noticed that there was over 356 transactions in the first half of this year, totaling 58 million, and people are making, it's the largest transaction that they make. Oftentimes it's the largest transaction that people make in a lifetime, and they need to be able to make a more informed decision so they'll be able to do comparable valuations. It's also used for the Fair Deal scheme for probate, and again it lacks clarity there, and I asked the council to write to the CEO of the PRSA to ask for clarification on it. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy, you seconded the.
Yeah, just to support the motion, and also it'll become very important when the revaluations of properties are done for the property tax, which has to be done next November, to be able to see the properties in your locality and what prices they've made, etc., so that people can make an informed decision, because it's self-declaration. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nobody else that needs to come in, we'll finish the motions there, and we need to set a date for to finish this meeting.
Oh, here, look. Yeah. This, when we deal with the property tax, we have a special meeting set. We set it earlier for, I think, Thursday, the 22nd. When we conclude that business, which should be fairly short meeting.
Exactly, that's true.
Yeah.
We could continue with the business at this meeting.
Okay.
We've organised the MG meeting as well for that. Well,
No, that's next month. That's next month.
The 29th.
We're first.
Thursday,
okay.
Thursday the 22nd. At what time do we say for the property tax meeting? Yeah, 10 a.m. You're right. And
10 a.m. Yeah.
is it Friday the 23rd that your municipal district meeting is?
Yes.
Or 29th?
You 10 o'clock that day.
So we'll follow. We'll finish this meeting after that. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
The 22nd.
Yeah.
I have to put a time on it. Come say 11 a.m.
Sorry.
We have to put a time on it.
On what date is it?
On the 22nd.
Not on the date of the, 22nd, Thursday 22nd.
Yeah. 11. We'll say 11 a.m. and we'll 11 a.m.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.